about the budget autonomy referendum that the citizens of the District of Columbia, your constituents all, just approved. Does this mean, I mean, this, you get the appeal of it. The city should be able to spend its own money without Congress saying, yes, you may spend your money. That's ridiculous. And if there's a threat of a budget shutdown, the city should be completely separate and apart and unimpacted by that. But it feels a little on its head. Do you think Congress will let this go forward now that it's here?
I'm all around the house looking for indications that somebody's going to pop up and try to do something about this. Don't look for somebody to put in a bill. Although somebody may do that just to show that they're paying attention. There are problems that have been raised, that were raised by our own Attorney General. They have been raised by even some responsible people in the House, and as we've looked at it, we understand the problems with the district giving its own self-budget autonomy, although I must tell you that this was not a crazy idea. There were very good lawyers that came up with this idea, and they're lawyers that everybody should respect. Nevertheless, it is done and slam dunk by any means. What I've been doing, instead of just trying to play defense, is looking for members of the House who want to do the congressional thing, which is what the city has wanted all along.
And arguably deserved.
Indeed. And we do have such members of the House, and the most important of them happens to be perhaps the most important member for the District of Columbia. And that's the man who heads the committee that has jurisdiction, and that is Darrell Issa. And I expect that Darrell Issa will introduce his own bill. Remember, I'm in the minority. He's got to introduce a bill for anything to happen. He's working on a bill. I expect that to happen. We're on recess now, so it would be when he comes back. That is the best offense. Instead of going around saying, don't do this, don't do that, the best offense is to have the Congress come forward, having listened to the people of the District of Columbia, knowing that there is absolutely no case to be made for bringing somebody else's budget to a national forum.
In just a couple seconds, because I want to move on to two other topics if time permits, what is it about Darrell Issa, the man, what is it about his background that brings him to a point where he appears to be someone you can work with and that the city can look to as a potential partner?
Darrell Issa is not the only conservative Republican I've ever found in the House, thank goodness.
Not suggesting that.
And well, look who else is for budget autonomy. Eric Cantor, who's the majority leader, who is most people would believe is as far right as you can get. Well, when you get to talk with people about things like budget autonomy, remember, most members of Congress don't know what in the world you're talking about. They don't pay any attention to the District of Columbia in the first place. So this just seems like something that they're supposed to be against. This is if you're a Republican because the district wants it and we have control over the district, and then some utterings about the Constitution. But if you have a careful, really intelligent member, I mean a really bright member who pays attention, and you get his attention, then you're in better shape. Bob McDonnell, why is the governor of Virginia for budget autonomy? First, he puts himself in the position of a chief executive and can't imagine giving his budget. He said that. The other reason is that he knows that his own residents, 100,000 of them come to the district every single day, would be caught here if there's a budget shutdown, and he cites that. So if you get to talk with people who want to pay attention, and we found such people, then you might be able to get budget autonomy.
Dialogue across the aisle in Washington. It's an interesting concept. We should pursue this a little more, perhaps see where it might take us. Briefly, and I wish we had more time, but let's try to tackle a couple of other issues briefly. When the background check bill went down, because it couldn't get to 60 in the Senate, a lot of people said, gee, I like the president's package. I understand why a couple components of it didn't fly, but this one, with its 97% supposed popular support, should have been able to get much farther down the road than it did. Do you see the opportunity for a second chance, which is being talked about now, I heard on the radio and elsewhere? Has the public fenced its outrage about what happened on the Hill recently?
I do, because I don't think you're going to leave that 90% plus of Americans who want background checks, who want thugs and criminals of all kinds looked at before they get a gun. That's not going to be left on the table, especially with a very good Democrat, conservative Democrat, stepping up and saying he's not going to do it. Look, those 22 children pierce the hearts of Americans. For the first time, the NRA has a real opponent, the people of the United States. This is going to come up again before the 113th Congress is over.
Are prisoners being overcharged for phone calls back home?
In the most horrendous way, and all of us are paying for it. We're paying for it because there is conclusive evidence for years now that while people are in prison, to the extent that they have contact with families, they come out better able to be reintegrated into society. When just pick up the phone, it costs you almost $4, and then maybe as much as 80 cents a minute. You can't phone home, and you come out after years in prison with no contact with anyone, even your family, and all of us pay the price in recidivism.
Is this profiteering by the private sector?
Kickbacks from monopoly companies. Now there's a petition before the FCC, and Congressional Black Caucus, I chaired this particular working group, is trying to get them to regulate, as the law says they must, intrastate and interstate phone calls involving prisoners.
Later in the program, we're going to be talking about the NFL draft, and I'm curious, given your background, the name of the local team. Do you use it?
I don't. I don't see how I can spend all my life as a black woman and then use a derogatory term when it comes to another ethnic group. And I'm not sure why. I'd like to hear the argument for holding on to that name. I hope that our team lives up to the admiration in which they are held all over this region and all over the country by just ditching the name. But why aren't the basketball team now? Why aren't they called the Bullets? Because one man, the owner, A. Poland, decided that was an inappropriate name for a big city today when gun violence was all around us.
Time for this owner of this team to think about a different name, knowing that the popularity that connects to his franchise would undoubtedly continue unaffected? And
would surge indeed. He's got great love for the team, no love for the name, and now he's going to let it become more and more of an issue. And that's what's happening. It's more and more of an issue. There's a bill now in the House. I didn't bring the bill, but